How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be creating a custom navigation bar in SwiftUI, and it's going to look like this. So we just have a normal bar at the bottom. There's a house, there's a message box, a person, and when we tap on it, it's going to have this very nice animation, and it's even going to be completely customizable with the color. As you can see, we are filling the element that we tap on, and it effectively changes the screen as well. So this is going to be a completely custom navigation component, which will be used in combination with the tab view in SwiftUI. And you can customize this to be any color you want. And as you can see, there's also that very nice zoom in animation when you tap on something. So I think it's a overall nice effect, and it looks beautiful also in light mode. So it doesn't matter which mode you're in, it's going to adapt. So let's go ahead and get started immediately by creating a new Xcode project. Now, the very first thing I want to do inside here is open the sidebar and create a new Swift file. So hold down Command+N, and actually I meant to say SwiftUI file, so tap on that, click on next, and we're just going to name this custom tab bar and click on create. Then we can close the sidebar to add some more space. Make sure that the project still compiles, so go ahead and resume your preview. And as soon as that is done, we can go ahead and get started by first creating an enum class. And it's going to be called tab because we need to keep track of which tab we're on, and we're just going to create some enums for that. And it's going to conform to string and case iterable, so we can loop through it. And let's open that up. Now, the magic here is going to be that each enum name is going to be the same as the name of an SF symbol. So go ahead and pick your favorite SF symbols from the navigator. And if you don't have this, you can just download it on the Apple website. It's called SF Symbols. And just look for some symbols that you really like, such as if you want to find a house, go ahead and type in house. And there you go, we have a house. And what's important to note is that we also have the variants, such as house.fill, and we're going to be using that as well. But what's important is that you name it exactly the same as the icons you want. So here we're going to go ahead and type in case in lowercase letters, house, case message, case person, case leaf, and case gear shape. So these are the SF symbols I want to use for my navigation bar. And you don't have to use 5, you can even use 3, you can use 2, it doesn't matter. The bar will adapt to the amount of shapes or to the amount of names you decide to use. Now, zooming down a bit or scrolling down a bit, we can go ahead and create a binding variable because we want to keep track of which tab we're currently on. And to do this, we're going to go ahead and call it var selected tab, which is going to be of type tab with no initial value. And I also want to create a computed property, which is going to take the SF symbol name and it's going to return it as a new string with the .fill, because each time we select a tab, I want to make sure that we get the filled tab, such as this house.fill. So we're going to create a very simple helper function or computed property, which will be called fill image, and it's going to be of type string. And inside here, all we have to do is get the selected tab dot raw value and append the word dot fill to it, and that's all it takes to make it a fill image. Now we still have this error at the bottom because we do not have a selected tab, so go ahead and click on fix, then type in dot constant, and here you can pick whether you want it to be a house, a message, a gear shape, whatever. I'm going to have the default set to the house. Now let's go ahead and get started with creating the tab bar. So go ahead and remove the text and create a VStack. And inside there, we want to create an HStack. And at the bottom, we're going to go ahead and create a frame with the width set to 0. The height is going to be set to 60 and the alignment is going to be removed. Then we want a background of .thin material, and this is going to change between dark mode and light mode, so it's a really good idea to use this material instead of a hard-coded color. Unless you want it just to be white the entire time, then pick your own background color. Then we'll give it a corner radius of 10 and some padding. So this is going to be the container, and currently it doesn't hold anything, so you're not going to see anything. But as soon as we start adding elements to it, you're going to notice everything. So here we need to create a for each loop, which is going to hold our tabs. So for each tab dot all cases, so it's going to iterate through all of the cases, and we're going to assign an ID of the /raw value as the ID, So for each tab in, we're going to have a spacer and another spacer, because we want this to be kind of like a sandwich. So the corners or the sides are going to be spaced out. So for each tab, in all cases, we're going to have this plus an image in the center, which is going to have a system name, which will depend on whether the tab is selected. So if the selected tab is the current tab, we're going to return the fill image. Otherwise, we're going to return the tab.raw value. So as you can see already, we have a house that is filled and the rest are just outlines. But if you want to change that, of course, you can go down to the constants and change that to, for example, let's say a message. And it's going to change to the message. So the functionality is working great. We just need to add some more effects to make this look a bit nicer. So let's zoom in on that so we can see more of it. And let's go ahead and add a scale effect. So scale effect, and this is going to depend on whether the tab is the selected tab. And if it is, we're going to return 1.25. Otherwise, we're just going to return 1.0. So the house is going to be slightly bigger than the rest of them if it is selected. And it doesn't matter whether you do selected tab is equal to tab or tab is equal to selected tab. I actually should change that to keep things more consistent. So we're going to go ahead and remove that and change it like that. So if the selected tab is equal to the current tab, that's going to happen. Then we also want to change the foreground color. And for now, we're just going to type in selected tab is equal to tab. And if that's true, we're going to say .red. Otherwise, we're just going to return .gray. So any tab that's selected is going to turn red. Now let's go ahead and change the font size. So here we're going to type in system size, and I'm going to specify 22 as the size, so it gets slightly bigger. And now the most important part is to create an on-tab gesture so that we can actually trigger the selected tab. And we're going to create a with animation for this, which is going to take an ease in, ease out with a duration of 0.1. And here we'll type in selected tab is going to equal the tab. So now let's actually go ahead and test this by opening our sidebar, going to our content view, and actually implementing it into this section over here. So the first thing we want to do is create an @state variable, which is going to be private var selected tab, which is going to be of type tab, and it's initially going to be set to the house, depending on which screen you want to show initially. And this is just to test it, so we can go ahead and type in custom tab bar, and it's going to take a selected tab of a binding variable, and we're just going to insert the selected tab. So just by doing that, we can go ahead and run this, and we can test it out by tapping on the icons. And you'll see that there's a nice animation, although there is a catch at the moment, and every icon we click on is going to be red no matter what we do. That is the selected color we've defined for this. So what we're going to do next is actually pin this window, and we're going to go to our custom tab bar, which for some reason I inserted up here. Just go ahead and drag that under the content view if it's the same for you, and just double click on it. We're going to still see the content view here because we pinned it, and we can now further edit it to show the colors that we want it to show. So the way I actually made this work is by creating another computed property. So private var tab color, and it returns a color. So inside here, we're just going to create a switch, which is going to take the selected tab, and as you can see, it's going to create all the placeholders for us. So here, if it's the house, we're going to go ahead and return .blue. Otherwise, if it is the message, we're going to go ahead and return .green. If it's a person, we can go ahead and return indigo. Otherwise, if it's a leaf, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to return .green. And if it's the gear shape, I'm just going to go ahead and return .black, or .orange actually. Now with this being put into place, we can scroll down, and where it says foreground color, instead of having .red, we're going to go ahead and insert our tab color. So now we can actually go ahead and live preview this one more time. And each time you select an item, it's going to be the selected color that you've decided to put there. Of course, the gear is orange, the house is blue, the person is indigo, and so on. So you can change that to be anything you want. But let's stop the live preview because the final part of this tutorial is going to be showing you how to implement it with some actual views. So now that we have all of this, we can go back to our content view and close the tab bar. And I'd also like to bring up that you can find the source code to this project in the description box down below in case you get lost at any point of this tutorial. But with that being said, let's continue. So here, the very first thing we need to do is create an initializer, because we're going to be calling the tab bar. And by default, when you call a tab bar, it's going to create or reserve an empty space on the screen for us. And we don't want it to do that. So we have to call UI tab bar dot appearance, and we have to call dot hidden and set it to true. So it's not going to reserve that space when we call the tab view. But now inside the body, we're going to go ahead and create a Z stack, and we're going to take the custom tab bar and select it and place it directly inside there. Then we're going to go ahead and wrap the custom tab bar and put it inside a V stack and place a spacer over it. So it's going to push it all the way to the bottom. Now, all we have to do here is insert the regular tab view inside here so that we can change the screens from this custom tab bar, which at the moment is in control of the selected tab. So to do that, we need to go ahead and create a V stack. And inside the V stack, we're going to have a tab view, which is going to have a selection, which is bound to the selected tab. And the content is going to be inside. So for the content, we're going to create a for each loop because I don't want to create all of the views by themselves. And it's going to take each tab dot all cases with the ID set to / dot raw value. And we're going to type in tab in, and inside here, we're going to insert each tab. So it's going to be an H stack with a tag of the tab tag. So the tab tag is just going to tell the selection which tab to go to when you select a certain tab. And inside here, it's quite simple. We're going to get the image and provide a system name, which is going to be the tab.raw value. And a text, which is going to hold the tab.raw value.capitalized with a bold. And it's also important that we go ahead and set an animation value, which is going to be set to nil for the selected tab. Because if you recall, when we went into our custom tab bar, we went ahead and said we want an animation when we select the tab. When something changes, we want to make sure we call this animation. And as a side effect in our main view, every time we call that, the text is affected because it's next to the selected tab and it registers that something changes. But we don't want the text to be animated or anything inside to be animated. So make sure you attach this to anything that's acting up. It's going to prevent it from being animated. But let's go ahead and close the sidebar and run the live preview just to make sure everything's working. And as you can see, we can change all of the icons as we please with that nice animation. And we can stop the emulator. But now let's go ahead and actually run the emulator, because this is always going to end up being quite unreliable. And as you can see here, we have the same layout as from before. We can tap on the message box, on the leaf, on this person over here, and everything's going to work just as we mentioned before. And it also works in light mode, which is great. But anyways, that's actually all I wanted to cover in today's video. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.